Hi. Hey. Hi. Hello. Hello, 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 hello. So, hi, yeah. Welcome to what I am calling Van Chat. This segment of my channel has not been named in the last time I sat in my van and talked to you guys head on. How very rude of me. I'm such a rude little thing, but I'm adorable, so it's totally okay. I don't know why I just breathed in like that. I am so sorry. Anywho, I am calling this segment Van Chats because I am just sitting in my van chatting with you guys, talking about stuff and things from the comfort of my van, because that makes sense. Yeah. So, it's been a minute since I have posted anything on this channel. It's been a month. The reason being is because the quarantine has been affecting my mental health in a negative way. I'm going to be forthcoming about that. And, you know, I do have some pre-existing mental health issues. I'm going to be honest about that as well. And it's just been a lot to deal with. So, I've spent this past month just trying my best to focus on self-care and keeping myself as stable as possible, and that meant taking a break from the work that needs to go into this channel. But I am happy to say that I am in a much better and happier place now, so let's back to business. Let's get back to business. It's back to business. Oh my goodness. Words. Ugh. So, this month is Pride Month, and this month means a lot to me personally. And along with that, I want to take this time to talk about the book that I wrote, which I currently do not have on hand with me, so we are going to insert an image of that sucker right here. So, anywho, the image that you guys just saw grace your screens so lusciously, oh yes, it was the book that I wrote, the poetry book, which I have referenced words in my prior Van Chat video, and it is from that book where I have made my currently 2 only poetry videos. And we're also going to talk about my book's relation to this month being Pride Month. And with that, I am going to tell you guys a story. I'm going to tell you guys about what my upbringing was like, followed by when I came out and how I came out and the aftermath of that, and tying all of that in to why I wrote my book, and finally why Pride Month means so much to me. So, my upbringing, it wasn't ideal. Just gonna be honest, it was not ideal at all. I'm not going to name any names, and I'm going to try my best to not point any fingers. I'm going to try my best to tell my story as objectively as possible. So, I was raised in a small, tight-knit, conservative Christian community in the San Francisco Bay Area, in the East Bay Area to be precise. And they had a very specific view of how the world works and their place in the world. Meaning, their ideology is that they're not of this world, and therefore they shouldn't call this world their home. And along with that, there were some things that they took an active separation from that should be considered everyday normalcy in the real world. But you know what? That's them, that's their choice, that's their lifestyle, and it just wasn't right for me. But we're going to build on that in a second. So, one of the standards in that church that I grew up in, also, slight precursor, I am not going to go into too much detail about what the church was like, as I will be forthcoming and say that my experiences there were traumatic. It did leave me with CPTSD, complex PTSD, which is a form of PTSD that you get from a prolonged exposure to a traumatic event, typically lasting along the realm of 3 months or more. And in my case, it was from birth to the age of 24. So I have a lot that I'm dealing with, but I am making progress in that regard. So I'm proud and happy to say that, but I'm not going to go into detail about what went down at that church. There was a lot of psychological mind games that went on there that they probably don't even consider to be mind games. They consider it to be normal. And that saddens me, but again, it's their life, it's their choosing to be that way. I choose differently, so I don't hate them. I offer no ill will to them. Instead, I wish them the best and that they can figure themselves out and that they can find a way to be happy and hopefully find a way to be loving and accepting to somebody in a way that they weren't loving and accepting towards me. I truly hope that for them. I truly do. So one of the standards in this church that I grew up in, they were very homophobic. A lot of them might deny it, but here's the thing. They're the kinds of people who are cordial and polite to gay people in public, but behind closed doors, or behind church doors, to be more accurate, that's when all of the homophobic venom would just spew out of their mouths. I have heard so many things about how homosexuals are an abomination, or how they're taking over. And so, growing up in that environment, you know, I struggled a lot internally with myself because I was raised to be straight, to be heteronormative, but that just wasn't me. As a kid, I loved Barbie dolls, I loved mermaids, I loved glitter, I loved butterflies, all of those things that a strong, masculine, heteronormative male should not like. And from an early age, I was conditioned to not be like that. There wasn't any conversion therapy or anything like that. It was just a lot of very intense projection on toxic masculinity that was kind of forced upon me from an early age of childhood up until an adult. So whenever I would say or do anything flamboyant, it was a punishable offense. Not violent, just to clarify, there was never any physical abuse done, but the abuse that I endured was mental, emotional, and that is just as serious as physical abuse because there are scars and bruises in my brain that I am still to this day, even though I've been away from it for so long, struggling to heal, struggling to stitch, struggling to mend. It's just that hard. And many people don't realize that. And I don't have ill will for those who don't realize that. In fact, I envy them. I wish I didn't realize that. But it's there. It's a reality. For the sake of context, I am going to need to shed some light on a few specific tendencies in the church, but I'm going to try my best to not go into too much nuance, and I'm going to try my best to still remain objective, because I am moving on from that. I don't need to revisit it, and I am trying my best to live and let live. So, here we go. So, the church I went to wasn't big by any means. It was just a small neighborhood church. But here's the thing, they would do whatever it took to keep people in line and to keep attendance strong. There was just a lot of fear tactics and a lot of subliminal mind control, if that's even the right way to describe it, I don't know. But there was just a lot of that sort of thing going on. It's just a bunch of weird culty mess, to be honest. And I'm glad I'm away from it, but it was my reality for a long time. And for too long, I thought that was my normal, because I didn't know anything else. A number of those who have left that church, like me, have CPTSD and other mental issues that they struggle with. And the church scoffs at that. They would frequently say things along the lines of, oh, well, that doesn't exist. That mental health issue isn't a thing. They're just feeling guilty for turning their backs on God. And that would just make us feel even worse, feel even smaller, because, you know, leaving a religion that you grew up in, leaving a faith that you tried to put your all into, that in itself is a trauma. And so, we are now going to talk about the homosexuality issue of my upbringing, leading into my writing of my book, and leading into why pride means so much to me. Lots to talk about in this video. Stick around, please. So, homosexuality was frowned upon, like I said previously. In my own personal experience, there was a time when I couldn't even watch a TV show if it had even one gay character. Just one LGBTQIA plus character made the whole TV show off limits. So I would have to watch that show in the dark of the night when everyone else is in bed just to enjoy it. Because that's just how it was for me. I couldn't express myself in full. I would always hear things from childhood, from a very early age. And bear in mind, when a child hears things from an early age and hears those things continued on to adulthood, these words stick with you. Words have power. And words need to be treated with respect and acknowledgement of the power that they hold. Now, from a young age, I would hear things from my family, things along the lines of, if we ever find out you're gay, we're not going to talk to you. And I heard this repeatedly. And from that point on, if I was to ever casually mention something about a man's attractiveness, I would get yelled at. If I was to walk with a little bit of sachet in my step, I would get yelled at. So I grew up truly hating myself because I was a dichotomy. I couldn't tell if I was the well-to-do, heteronormative, masculine Christian church boy or the fantabulous, cute, little, spunky, sassy, bitchy unicorn boy that I am now. But that caused me a lot of internal strife and turmoil. And since it was against the grain of what I grew up with, I had no idea who I was going to be, where my life was going, let alone how I was going to survive. Okay, so trigger warning. For some context, trigger warning, please bear with me here. I was suicidal for a time. I felt like a failure in God's eyes. I felt like I was failing the church and failing my family and all that I've known. So every night before bed, I would contemplate taking a knife from a collection of knives, a small collection of knives that I had in one of my bedside drawers, and just ending it, because I felt that was the only option that I had. Because emotionally, I couldn't fathom being gay and being Christian, because that just wasn't an option for me. But luckily, I had a strong foundation of friends, real friends, who know the meaning of the word friendship, who stood by me. They brought me out of that dark time, and they were the first people I ever came out to. And I expected the worst, because all I've seen from my upbringing was the worst. In terms of sexuality, I should say, to clarify. But I got the opposite. I got love. I got true, genuine love. And that was such a new feeling for me. It got to a point where I was happier at a retail job, because I could be myself in full, than I was at home. Let's be real. Little to nobody is happy at a retail job. But that became my home, because my work family there became my chosen family. They were the first foundation cornerstones of my chosen family. We're gonna fast forward a bit to a couple years later, aka a couple years ago. It got to a point where I started to feel stomach pain, and it was severe stomach pain. My doctors couldn't figure out why. Nobody knew why, and it was getting worse and worse, and the pain was getting so severe that, again, trigger warning, the suicidal thoughts came back with a vengeance, and I wanted to live. So in that moment, I realized my options were either come out as gay and claim myself for who I really am, or I would end it. And I didn't want that option of ending it. That just wasn't an option for me. What happened next, I'm not proud of. It wasn't an ideal situation. I was terrified to have the face-to-face conversation with my family about me being gay, because of how they were, and because of how the church was, and because of my own fears based on that. I did not feel emotionally safe coming out to them in person. And so I came out to them via email. I laid everything out. I expressed that I just couldn't support that religious view anymore, and I wasn't going to church with them anymore, and that I'm gay, and that I've been struggling for so long that it's been me straddling a fence, and I had to choose a side, and I was choosing myself for the first time ever. I'm not going to go into detail about what the email said or the conversation that followed after that, but I will say that as a result of that email conversation and some less than ideal text conversations after that, I no longer live with or speak to my family. It is a sad situation. I wish it was different. I wish a lot of things could have been different, but bottom line, I ended up alone and homeless for a while and couch surfing. All of a sudden, in a single instance, I lost everybody. I lost my family, who I've grown up with. I've lost my church community, who I've grown up with. Everybody who I've been close to and comfortable with, gone in a single instant just because of the words, I am gay. So, losing my whole community like that, in a single night, as well as leaving my religion, as well as finally embracing my true identity, it was a lot to take in. It was so much to take in, and my mental health started to deteriorate because of it. I started having to go to therapy to deal with my mixed feelings. I had feelings of intense anger, intense sadness, intense fear. There was so much that was unknown to me, and so much that was uncertain. So in my time of transition, you can call it, of lifestyles, I was deeply depressed and miserable. My anxiety was spiking. My depression was becoming out of control. I was getting panic attacks frequently. I was becoming agoraphobic. I was terrified to go out by myself at night. I was traumatized by the accumulation of things that I was dealing with. I was deeply traumatized. And from the things I had to deal with while couch surfing and living homeless, there were some situations I found myself in that were less than ideal and not even safe. But I survived those. I made it through each and everything that came my way with help from my friends. I couldn't get through anything alone. My friends, my ever-growing chosen family, was there for me in a way that I couldn't even fathom. And they saved me. Each and every one of them. Whether I talk to them now or not, they all saved me. And I am so grateful for all of them. You know, friends come and go, but love lasts. And the way that my friends showed me love in those times, that's lasting. And you know, it was last year when I started writing poetry again. I say again because I was a poet in high school, and I wrote frequently after that even, just as a hobby. But through my time last year, specifically during late summer and early fall of 2019, I began to slowly start to rediscover myself for who I am. And that was a process. I had a friend who was very helpful in that process. And it was through that time when I rediscovered poetry. And I rediscovered how poetry gave me the means to express things in a way that I couldn't say out loud. And so I gathered poems that I wrote back when I was closeted about myself and about my struggles with religion and accepting myself and the kind of person I would be. Backtracking a lot. I would write poetry all the time back when I was closeted and in church. I would go home, cry into my pillow about trying to pray the gay away, but still being gay, still being a failure in my own eyes, which is unfortunate to say. So after I would have my nightly pillow cry, I would take out my pen and paper and I would just write my little fucking heart out. I would write poem after poem after poem about whatever I was feeling, and I would just write it in a way that made sense to me so I could process my emotions and move on. And that was my saving grace. If it wasn't for those poems, I would have been so lost, and I truly would not be here today if it wasn't for the poems that I wrote, because it was my journaling. It was my therapy before I started real therapy. It was my only sense, my only source of true expression. And that's what kept me feeling alive in a time where I was emotionally and mentally shackled. So jumping back to late summer, early fall of 2019, when I started rediscovering my poetry, I vowed to myself that I was going to use my poems to tell my story. Not only for myself, not just to express myself in full, but to also share myself with the world. To let people who have gone through what I've gone through know that they're not alone. It is possible to find your way out of that situation and to love yourself. Now, not everybody went through what I went through specifically, but people are still going through oppression in one way or another. The LGBTQIA plus community still has a ways to go in terms of being accepted by the masses, and there's still a lot of work to be done there. And there's many people who grow up not knowing who they are or feeling wrong for who they are. Even worse, there's people who feel like they are truly a mistake for who they are. And I felt like that. I don't want anyone else to ever feel like that again. It's a gross feeling that nobody should ever have. So that's why I decided to write my book, Red Recompense. I took poems that I wrote from my closeted days, and then I also wrote some poems after the fact, reflecting my perspective at that time as a newly-ish out man, as gay, and trying to figure life out. And then I also wrote poems about the traumas I experienced in the in-between times, between first coming out, between acknowledging my sexuality for the first time to myself, and between my times of being homeless, and between finally learning how to accept myself in full, and learning how to love myself in full. When I published my book in full, that was me taking ownership of my life for myself. That was me deciding for myself the direction that my life would take. Not my family, not my church, me. I took a stand for myself. I am going to live my life this way, and I'm going to cultivate my life in this way. I took ownership, and that makes such a beautiful difference. And that brings me to why pride means so much to me. Pride is more than just dressing up in your flashy rainbow clothes and shaking your thick asses in the street of the pride parade, you know what I'm saying? But it's about taking ownership of who you are. You know, the world will try its best to cripple you. The world will tell you to be a nonconformist as long as you conform to their standards, which is grossly hypocritical. But pride is all about just letting your own light shine in the way that you are. And I love that. I fucking love that. Pardon my French, hee hee. And, you know, on that note, a little piece of irony, I've never been to Pride because of my upbringing being what it was, and because I was so closeted and had a specific secular view of Pride that wasn't accurate to what it is at all. I've never been. I was going to go for the first time last year, but due to circumstances outside of my control, I wasn't able to go then. And I was going to go this year for the first time, but due to the current situation regarding the pandemic and as regards to public safety, you know, Pride has been postponed at least, so my first time with Pride is still waiting, but it's going to happen. And when I go to my first Pride event, man, it's going to be such a beautiful time. I am going to express myself in a way that I've never expressed myself before, with others who understand me, others who know the struggle and the love. I may not have been to Pride, but I know what it means, because I might not have been there yet, but I take it with me everywhere I go. You know, I dress very colorfully, very flamboyantly. I color my hair regularly. And I remember one time I was visiting a friend, and he told me I looked like I was dressed for the Pride Parade. To me, I was dressed normally, but to him, I was dressed for an all-out Pride event. And I looked him dead in the eye, and I said, honey, for me, every day is Pride. I celebrate that every day. Because I am proud of who I am. I am proud of who I've become. And I am proud of me. I'm proud to be me. Nothing can change that. Nobody can change that. And I might not be at the Pride Parade yet. I might not be at a Pride event yet, of any kind, yet. But I take it with me, because I am proud of who I am. My hope is that through the poems in my book, maybe others can find their own pride to take with them if they're unable to go to Pride. Or if they can go to Pride but still struggle with accepting themselves, maybe I can help them with that. That's all I want to do as a writer and as a person, as an advocate. Just help people to feel the love that's been denied to me, that I've had to find for myself. It's possible. It's so possible. I'm not one for cliches, but I'm going to give you guys one right now. It gets better. Alright, so that's basically it. That is the story of me, where I came from, what caused me to write my book and why pride means so much to me. Like, all of it is so intertwined, and they're all steps that came together to bring me to this version of myself. You know, I have not regrets, I have memories. I have memories of times that were not ideal. A regret is something that you didn't learn from, I believe. That is a failure, when you don't learn, when you refuse to learn. But when you do learn, you grow. And that's when a mistake becomes a lesson, and lessons are beautiful. I didn't do everything the right way. I'm not gonna say that I did. I'm not gonna say I'm the hero who made all of the right choices. I'm the hero of my story who saved myself, yes, but I didn't do everything the right way. I made mistakes. And I learned from them. So, I don't have regrets for what I've been through. I'm appreciative because what I have been through has made me strong. I wish it didn't happen to me. I'd be lying if I said I didn't wish I was raised in a loving, accepting family where I could just come out earlier, or even whenever I did come out, doesn't matter, if I was just accepted and loved for who I was without having to feel guilty and scared. But I didn't. I didn't get that. Life dealt me a different hand, and I played. I played the game and I won. So my parting message to those of you watching this, if you struggle with yourself, with accepting who you are, if you struggle with your gender identity or your sexual orientation, be patient with yourself. Show yourself compassion. Give yourself time. And find people who will love you for yourself. That's so important. Love is inherent. We all have it, but it's also learned. So if you struggle, find people who know the true meaning of the word love. And while you're at it, try your best to find things to love about yourself, because you are all beautiful the way that you are. I know I am. And I am not ashamed to say that. Alrighty, so that brings us to the end of this week's Van Chat. I would like to thank all of you so very much for having stuck this video through in its entirety. I know that this was a little bit lengthy, and in some cases it got deep and intense, but it truly means a lot that you guys were able to stick this out and watch and listen to my story, listen to why I wrote my book, and listen to why pride means so much to me. I really appreciate the listening. That means a lot. So, that's it. I am horrible at ending videos. I love you all so much. I hope you guys are staying safe during quarantine, and I hope that you guys are living your best lives as you can. And yeah, that's it. I am really awkward at ending these videos, so yeah. Bye!